Alright guys, this is trigonometry lesson 2 and we're trying to find the sine ratio and how to find the lengths and angles. Alright guys, this is the trigonometry ratio formulas. Okay, so for example, you won't be given this in an exam. Okay, you will not be given this in an exam, so you need to learn it off by heart. One way that we can do that is use the mnemonic SOHCAHTOA, okay, which SOH just stands for sine theta, opposite over hypotenuse, cosine theta, adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan theta, opposite over adjacent. Alright, the way that we can work it out, the method that we need to use to work these formulas out are the following. So what you need to do is cover up the letter you want to work out in the triangle. You're going to multiply if they are side by side and divide if one is above the other. Okay, so what do I mean by that? In the question, let's say we're looking at the sine ratio formula. Okay, the one that we wanted to work out is the opposite. Okay, what we need to do is shade in the opposite, and then we're left over with sine theta, sine angle, times that by the hypotenuse. Okay, that is essentially the multiply part. Now if you wanted to divide, let's look at the cosine theta one. So the cosine ratio formula. Okay, so in this question we wanted to work out what the angle is, so we will cover up the cosine theta and be left over with adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, and that's how we use this cover up method. Alright guys, here's an example of how to use the cover up method. I'm not trying to show the working out just yet, because that's quite easy once you know how to use the method. So let's look at this right angle triangle here. It's given, we need to decide which trig formula we're going to use. Let's label our sides first. Opposite the right angle is our hypotenuse. Okay, remember that. And the second one, opposite our angle, is our opposite side. And then we're left over with adjacent. We don't need the adjacent side because there's no information there, so we can cross that out. What do I mean by no information? The opposite side has an x, the length that we're trying to work out, so we need that side. The hypotenuse has 10 centimeters there, it's a length that we can use. So according to this, we need O and H. Which one of these three trig formulas has O and H in it? If I look at it straight away, O and H are in my first one. Everything else only has one thing, the opposite or the hypotenuse, but the sine trig formula has both of them in it, so we need to use the sine formula. Alright guys, so which one are we trying to work out? What is the length that we're trying to find? Is the opposite side. So look here, as you can see, it covers it up, so we know that this, how to work this one out, we're going to use sine theta times the hypotenuse. I'll get to how to do that in a minute, but the method is very important. So number one, label the triangle, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Number two, decide which ratio you need to use. Number three, cover up the letter you want to work out in the formula triangle. And number four, substitute the values in and use your calculator to work out the missing lengths. Alright guys, this is that previous example that I showed you from the previous slide. So how to work it out? Remember, we need to decide what trig formula to use. Again, label the sides. So we look at it, hypotenuse and our opposite. Okay, so we decide to use the trig formula of the sine theta, opposite and hypotenuse. Okay, now what are we trying to find? We need to cover that one up, so we need to find the opposite side's length. Okay, the opposite side's length. So if you look at the trig formula, we're going to cover the opposite. Now how to work it out? This is how we do it. So again, we have our sine theta, the angle, opposite times hypotenuse. Okay, the one we're trying to work out is the opposite length, so we cover and shade that in. So we're left over with sine angle times the hypotenuse. So what we need to write down is sine, the angle, 63 degrees, times this by my hypotenuse. Therefore, this answer should give me 8.91 centimeters to 2 decimal places. That's simple, guys. That's simple. Alright guys, for this example we need to work out the length of y. Alright, first things first, we need to label the sides. Okay, so opposite the right angle is my hypotenuse, opposite my angle is my opposite side. Alright, and we're left over with the adjacent. Why do we not use the adjacent? Because there is nothing there, it has no value, it doesn't want you to do anything with it. If you look at the opposite side, it has a value there, 5 centimeters. If you look at the hypotenuse, we have something we need to work out, which is y. The adjacent has nothing there, so we cross that out. So we're left over with O and H. Which one has O and H in it? Opposite, hypotenuse. Again, we're going to use the sine. What we're trying to cover up? We're trying to cover up the hypotenuse. You're going to cover up the hypotenuse like that. So let's write this out. Sine angle or theta times this by my hypotenuse and over my opposite. Okay, so make a triangle out of it. Which one are we trying to find? We're trying to find the hypotenuse. We cover that up, so we know it's going to be opposite over sine angle. So what you're going to do now is get whatever values you need from the triangle. So for example, the opposite is 5. You need to divide it because it's over sine theta. So sine is sine, what's my angle? 41 degrees. You put that into a calculator, so it's 5 divided by sine 41. That will give me 7.62 centimeters to 2 decimal places. Okay. Alright guys, here's an example to find the missing angle. Okay, it differs from the previous two examples of finding the missing length, but in this example we're trying to find the missing angle. We keep the same approach. What we need to do is label our right angle triangle. So opposite the right angle is my hypotenuse, opposite my angle is the opposite side, and we're left over with adjacent. The one that we don't need to use is the adjacent. Why? Because it doesn't have a length on it or missing length to work out. So using our trig formulas, which one has the opposite and hypotenuse, we need to find out. So which one has it? It's the sine trig formula. The sine trig formula has opposite and hypotenuse, so that's the one we are going to use. It's still the same approach. What we need to do is cover up the one we are trying to find out. So that is, in this question, the missing angle. So we cover up the missing angle. Alright, what we need to do now is write it out. How would this look like? It would look like this: sine theta or angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. We need to separate this part here, sine theta, because we're trying to get the angle on its own. So what you need to do is divide by sine on both sides. Okay, so therefore it should look like angle equals inverse sine opposite over hypotenuse. This is your formula you would be using to find the missing angle. Okay, so now you can, all you have to do is substitute in your values. Okay, so let's write it down here. Angle equals inverse sine, your opposite, which is 7, and your hypotenuse, which is 10, in the calculator. Just to make sure that you remember, when you try to write down sine, inverse sine in your calculator, what you need to do is press the following: shift and sine. Okay, to write that in your calculator, and then you should get an answer of 44.4 degrees. Okay, so please make sure when you use inverse sine or inverse cos or inverse tan later on, you make sure you use this first, shift and then the trig function. Alright, thank you. Alright, for set 3 and set 4, please have a go at the red and green questions. Select any two from the red section and select any two from the green section and attempt them. For set 5, please only do the red section only and upload your answers to class charts.